All right, here we go. Welcome everyone to the Beat Joe Bartel Online Championship. Here we're the NFFC competition with the $250,000 grand prize, $350 entry. I just finished up my Sirius XM show, and we are getting underway at the moment with the draft. The first round, more or less, looking what we expected to. Mari and I just signed off and had talked through what would happen at pick 9. I had been convinced I was going to go Garrett Wilson. And I think I still, I think it's still in hindsight, I might, but Mario had taken a pick 10. And for our relationship, for the rest of the Fridays, we do this now, moving forward on the Sirius XM airwaves until probably it feels like end of February at this point, that we have a critical pick in one of the bigger drafts that he and I partake in shared. And with my luck, the way the first round goes, I did not feel comfortable saying we're going to have Garrett Wilson being alongside. So I took AJ Brown, followed my guy, Jim Coventry, who is universally always right with this stuff. So I feel really good in hindsight, kind of leaning that direction. What's going to happen here round 2 is really the key part for me. And that will have Jonathan Taylor already go off the board here, pick 12. One of those guys I was hoping maybe would fall to me, but we have 3 more selections to that point. But happy to hear from all you guys. Happy to have the stream going live right now, and hopefully everything is working as everyone's trickling in at the moment. I know there will be a point at some junction where I'll either take a let's get some water break or a desperate plea to make sure Alan can come in and make fun of my team if that's the case, if he's watching live as well too. So we'll get to all of that a little bit on. But obviously with the second pick here early, I'm perversely curious to see if the exact scenario that Mari and I talked about will occur if one of my receivers fall. But Puka going in that direction, one of those that we were anticipating might end up being this the scenario too. Marvin Harrison. So this is one of those where I'm really happy with the outcome and one I was hoping for. Drake London going to my team as well, and the AJ Brown, Drake London stack in a full point PPR format feels like a very confident. Oh, I don't know. Certainly with AJ Brown, it's like you can get the 1,300 yards and 85 catches easily. The moon ball throws that Jalen Hurts now I feel like does excellent job at is going to be the beneficiary for AJ Brown and his touchdowns. But Drake London doesn't have to do a whole lot with Kirk Cousins as the quarterback to be a 90 catch guy for 1,200 yards. And maybe he doesn't score touchdowns. I mean, that's Kyle Pitts, maybe Bijan Robinson does what you'd expect. He went 5th overall. Like those are all great, but I really feel confident saying Drake London will be one of those. The unfortunate issue is with the production Drake London's having in his career, you don't want him to be a top 16 pick. You'd be like a top 24, top 30. And that's just not where he's going right now. So Drake London, AJ Brown would have been probably one of the ideal starts I'd have. And I actually wrote down a sheet of paper. I'm not hiding the answers for everyone. The scenarios or outcomes that I want to have for the first 4 rounds. That's about as good as we could have hoped for. If maybe one of those first 8 had fallen, that's the better spot. But yeah, feeling pretty good. Devon Achane, thankfully, don't have to make that decision at all. He goes a couple picks after me. Travis Etienne a little bit earlier. So you see the fall on Chris Olave, who would have been my next choice after Marvin Harrison went right before. I like Olave to a certain point. The vibes of New Orleans do not seem good. That might be one of the least vibey teams. Is that one of those statements you can make? Dennis Allen throwing Kendrick Miller under the bus. Derek Carr and his eyeliner causing issues for a lot of folks last year and certainly into this year. There's retribution for messing with the cap for as long as the Saints did, and I think we're finally getting to that. Ryan Ramczyk already looks like out for the season, one of their stud tackles, and the Trevor Penning decision for a first-round pick also seems to be just looming horribly bad for that team. So I like Olave a lot. I think he could be a really, really good player in the league, but not convinced that's somebody I want to have in the first 20 selections or thereabouts. So nearing the 3rd round of versatile selection for me, I will not be like Alan Seslowsky and miss it or forget what's happening there. 6 picks to go. I had thought maybe a Nico Collins or Mike Evans would fall to me. Mario astutely pointed out in the SiriusXM show that was not going to occur. So we might get, we'll have to see. I don't want to tip anybody off. I mean, we might have a play where I'm really liking the build with a certain 3 receiver set or throwing in a running back or tight end, but really curious. Through 2 rounds, I'm not sure I really see any like obvious ones. I really despise Devon Achane. I'm just not going that direction, but I understand why somebody, especially as Jamar Chase, that 1-2 combo can just win you the league right there. Like there's easy outcome for that possibility if both their peaks end up hitting. So again, yeah, Derrick Henry going last pick in the second round. That would have been who I'd like to see fall to me. Looking at the board right now, it's not. I know the options, I guess, because I know you guys can't see it. Michael Pittman, DJ Moore, Brandon Ayuk, Stephon Diggs among the receivers, Isaiah Pacheco, Josh Jacobs at running back. Kyron Williams is also in that equation as well too. You have the Sam Laporta and the Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce combo, Cooper Kupp as well for receiver. Having went 2 receivers already, it gives me some flexibility to do whatever I want here in this third round. And there is some guys that I like, but man, this is gonna be really tricky. I'm not sure I have an idea of what I want to do at the moment. I have some friends already asking for the link. I'm going to get that sent out live to a few people. Although I don't see the comments right now, so I'll have to figure out how to interact with the audience the way that other people were doing these live streams when that ends up happening. But let's get this last pick settled, and then we can figure out the comment section as we're going. All right. So still Sam Laporta is the lone pick in the third round. Clock's ticking here on team 11. Yeah. 10, and they take Kyron Williams, who was the next guy off the board in that scenario. So looking at 3 receivers possibly, and Malik Neighbors, I guess, jumping the ADP a little bit. So you have DJ Moore, who Mari and I've mentioned quite a bit. Oh boy, this is tough in that spot. I think I'm just gonna trust what I have done before. We've done so many different reps of best ball or otherwise how this looks like. I'm going to stick with the receiver. I'm going to stick with the guy that I think DJ Moore can be fantastic and is like wide receiver. You start 3 receivers, you start 2 running backs in the flex. DJ Moore is going to work out triumphantly in that spot, and it also makes me not have to be aggressive around 6, 7, 8, getting that wide receiver 3, and we'll kind of be one of the few teams left that's been just receiver heavy. We'll see what happens for team 3 and 2 when they get their picks at the back end of the third round. So just sending some messages real quick for a few folks as we get underway. And again, thank you everyone for watching the live stream. Oh yeah. Hey, Reed. Thank you. Yes. Happy to see you, Reed, around. Not deliberately. I guess I'll post that. Reed's a roommate of mine back in college. Are you going 0 running back strategy? Not deliberately, guys. It's not intentional. Like, with the 6 points per passing touchdown format, I think the quarterbacks get value, but also I like the point per reception. And DJ Moore is catching a lot of passes. Drake London's catching passes. AJ Brown catching a lot of passes as well too. So no, it is not a 0 running back strategy. I think it'll probably more like a hero one if that's the case. But I understand everyone's concern right now going that route. We'll see as we progress throughout this draft. Hoping some running backs fall. I have an idea of what I want it to look like, but hoping some running backs fall as we get on with this draft here. Let's see, sending off that message. All right, we should be good to go. Jarrett chiming in with the 0 running back too. Just take the eyeballs off. Come on, it's 3 rounds in. How many people are really taking running backs 3 rounds in that sort of scenario? This is not that crazy. Pacheco went off the board. That's the only one after DJ Moore so far, and we've been 5 picks in. I like the Cooper Kupp call. That would have been one that I would have also went with as well. So as the teams are shaping out through the first 3 rounds, more or less what I thought, which is a good feeling. I think I'd have to do the exact math. I'm pretty sure I'm at 35 different best balls. Now I don't have the $25 bankroll for Best Ball Mania like some of the folks you see on Twitter. So I'm just throwing the $3, $5, putting the kid to bed, doing the draft an hour scenarios. And the ADP is relatively normal. You see Pacheco and Underdog is specifically going like late round 4. That's one of those I'll absolutely look at quite often. But through the third round, only 3 non-receiver picks. That is very typical of the best ball formats. I'm surprised that it's kind of echoing that through the first part. The McCaffrey Derrick Henry combo, like in like 2020. That wins you the league just for those 2. And I'm kind of nervous in 2024 if that also happens. Then that is the 2020 team. Stephon Diggs, let's go. Oh, and Amari Cooper, my God, we're blast from the past for this group of receivers. I have done this question, and I'm curious if the audience knows. I mean, we have got 300 people listening right now. Who were the top? I'll phrase it a different way. The receivers that the rookie receivers drafted earliest, there were 3 since 2015. None have been drafted from like an average draft perspective higher than round 5. Can anyone name the 3 receivers, the 3 highest drafted receivers since 2016 that were first round rookie targets? I'll let the chat kind of deliberate. I guess I kind of spoiled one with when I posed this question, but 2 are obvious. The third one is not. So the 3 receivers drafted the highest among rookies since 2016. I'll throw that one out throughout the day. So 4 receivers. I like this. CeeDee Lamb, Jalen Waddle, Devonta Smith, George Pickens, all massive upside guys outside of maybe Devonta Smith. I mean, if Tyreek Hill were to get injured, was Jalen Waddle look like for an extended season now that you got Tua paid? I don't know if the Tua paying thing really correlates to Jalen Waddle. I think Jalen Waddle is just an awesome receiver. So is Devonta Smith. And I really am excited to see how that wide receiver build of those 4 guys works if you can get the running backs to fall where you want them to. I don't know if they will, but really intriguing spot in the Stephon Diggs and Amari Cooper one. A lot of the RotoWire guys have done the live streams of these drafts. This is my first one, so a lot of ums and hemming. I apologize to the audience for that happening. I don't really care so much talking about my team. I really like talking about everyone else's and the strategy that happens for this. And again, with the $250,000 grand prize, if you finish first in this format, there's unique builds. I've done this now. This is the 4th year. Oh man, time flies. 4th year of doing this. Last year, Travis Kelce was pick 3 in my draft, which was the highest I've ever seen Kelce go. Obviously, he was a mid first round, late first round guy for a lot of folks, but to see him go to that extent was like, wow. And there's always one of those. Josh Jacobs was the guy I was hoping fall to me. I was considering him in the 3rd round. Didn't want to really mention the name, but between Pacheco and Josh Jacobs, either one of those 2, I think are top 30 guys, and their ADP consistently has them falling out of that, especially Jacobs, who's now easily an early 5th round pick in underdog best balls. I'm not just a Packers homer. In fact, I think among the experts, at least at RotoWire, I feel like I'm universally pretty hard on the Packers. Jacobs has got a very good scenario for him to be running back 5 or 6. Like after that Jonathan Taylor range, Jacobs, I think, could easily produce to that level, especially in a full point PPR format. You can talk to me about Marshawn Lloyd. I think for year 1, the way the Packers backfield shapes out, Marshawn Lloyd is like the Justin Jackson to the Austin Eckler Charger years. And that's not a knock on Lloyd. I think Lloyd's actually a totally fine, talented player. But the way that they get 4 or 5 carries, or like early Tony Pollard, Ezekiel Elliott, where you're getting those high octane or big play potential carries, you give it to the really fast guy. But in most situations, Lloyd's not on the field because AJ Dillon's going to take the pass blocking opportunities. And I think AJ Dillon, if he's not a better receiver, I guess I'm on the clock. I'll pause myself talking about this. Running backs around this range, which is probably what I should be doing, is like James Cook, Joe Mixon, Rashad White. You got Kenneth Walker and Alvin Kamara. I think that's like a little bit uneasy of a scenario for me among those running backs. And I don't want to put the rest of my roster build into a situation where it doesn't work out. So I'm going to take Joe Mixon here, like we talked about on the SiriusXM show just a little bit earlier. Mario did a good job of bracing myself that I would not get Josh Jacobs. I wouldn't get Pacheco. They wouldn't fall to me at 9. So what does that roster look like if Mixon is your first running back? And provide he's healthy, which he should be, and you can get the backup for the Texans and Dameon Pierce or Jawar Jordan basically with either one of your last picks, you're safeguarding yourself and getting the running back one of the best offenses in the league. So I feel very comfortable with Joe Mixon. However, I felt really comfortable with Najee Harris in round 3, 2 years now in a row that I've done that mistake. And there's been that running back, that guy for that year, a veteran who's been around for a while and you think will produce, but maybe not to the expectations. It's burned me every single time. I think 2 of the last 3 years I've finished either dead last or close to dead last in this format. And I don't want to do that again. So that I'm worried I'm making the same mistake is very frustrating. Corey, stop revealing all my favorite sleepers. Yes, Audric Estime, which I've seen go around 14, 15 is one of those guys that I like quite a bit. I will be aggressive in getting him. I don't know what Sean Payton will do other than something stupid, which feels like using Audric Estime often over Javonte Williams or Jaleel McLaughlin. So I think Estime is going to be a completely reasonable sleeper or late round selection that I definitely want to have as we get into that. So Joe Mixon, this is now the range of quarterbacks. If you see Josh Allen not off the board, he's the very top in the ADP, and I think 22 at least of NFFC ADP. We're on pick 52 at the moment. You have Mahomes at 35, Jalen Hurts at 39, Lamar Jackson at 45, CJ Stroud. There's a lot of these quarterbacks that are still left. And this is going to end up being, I think, one of the later quarterback drafts that we've seen of any of these NFFC competitions. Really excited to watch how this unfolds again. As somebody that just watches other people's teams and revels in or gets excited, really strategy-wise, really curious. So Mahomes going the first quarterback off the board, that's how I would do things. I would take Mahomes over Josh Allen. I always like when I get the round difference, round and a half in certain formats to do that, but in 6 points per passing touchdown, which is what the NFFC is, easy call. And I think the Bills, sneakily, they're plus money on this right now to miss the playoffs. I don't think is out of the realm of conversation. Joe Burrow's healthy. Bengals offense is theoretically better. Get the Ravens still, obviously. Chiefs, Jets, I think, are going to be another playoff. Like, there's, when you're rattling off all these other AFC teams, it's like, well, wait, what scenario are you going to end up seeing the Bills push for one of those spots? And it took till one of the final weeks to have that happen in the first place. I don't feel really comfortable saying the Bills are going to make the playoffs. I'll be very curious to see how that ends up going. All right, so ADP wise, we're looking at Rachaad White, James Cook, Kenneth Walker, Alvin Kamara among the running backs. Again, I need theoretically one more of the receivers: T. Higgins, Keenan Allen, Rashee Rice, Jaden Reed, Chris Godwin, Deontay Johnson in a full point PPR format. And then we really haven't seen a push on tight ends. Mark Andrews, Dalton Kincaid, both left too. And T. Higgins just went off the board as well. I have wanted to have an elite tight end. I don't like waiting on that spot too much. I feel pretty good waiting on running back. I don't really want Rachaad White or James Cook. And the receivers in this range, I think it's more or less the same, although I think Rice has got the opportunity to be a difference maker if that's the case. I'm going to go... man. I think I'm going to go with Mark Andrews here over Dalton Kincaid, which maybe goes against conventional wisdom. And the attractive part for Mark Andrews in that instance is you can just get the backup who will be a very easy slot in Isaiah Likely later on. And with, I think it's clear on this, 20 rounds, right? Or something that, yeah, it should be 20 rounds. Perfect. Like you can have one spot waste in Isaiah Likely for most of your year and not really get him hindered with the fab perspective. So I'll take Mark Andrews, ended up being tight end 4 off the board. Kelsey McBride going early in 4. Don't have to worry about trying to chase that later on. And I feel confident with the way the board is breaking with quarterbacks and running backs that I'll get my guys that I like relatively easily in rounds 6 and 7. So feeling good with the tight end, enough with Mark Andrews. Looking at the comments here, Calvin Ridley going to have a down year. No O-line, and Callahan doesn't have Burrow to fix the mistakes. I agree with the Callahan part. I'm not convinced Callahan's going to be anything special for Tennessee. And then you had DeAndre Hopkins now out 4 to 6 weeks, probably missing week 1. Like there's a certain point I'll take Calvin Ridley. It's not now, right? Like I would take T. Higgins over him. Zay Flowers, certainly. I think I'll take Christian Kirk, like any one of those receivers. But you look at these guys next, and I'll pull up the ADP: Keenan Allen, Rashee Rice, Jaden Reed, Chris Godwin. I would take Rashee Rice. I'd take Chris Godwin. I'd take Jaden Reed. So I guess 3 more over Calvin Ridley. But I'd rather have Calvin Ridley over Keenan Allen in that instance. So Jarrett's asking here, Chase, Amari, Marv for the wide receiver question before, or Ross sneaking in here. Yeah, that's... I would rather have Jamar Chase, obviously, if we're ranking them. That's not a ranking question, but Marvin Harrison's a really interesting one. I would have taken Drake London over Marvin Harrison. I think a lot of people would be like, why are you choosing to do that? But it definitely is I guess I'm just nervous. Oh yeah, I'm just nervous about what Marvin Harrison is going to do for that. But this is Jared's asking the question, answering my question. Jamar Chase is one of them. Yes, Jamar Chase was one of the receivers. Again, since 2016, there have been 3 receivers taken in the 5th round average ADP, and 6th round, and then 6th round. Jamar Chase is one. I think I asked this question to Jared at different points, so he gets to cheat. And Amari is the other answer. That's the one everyone forgets about. Is 2016 rookie for the Raiders. Amari Cooper was the highest rookie drafted since Mike Evans and Julio Jones were back in their rookie years. So to have Marvin Harrison go in the 2nd round and Malik Neighbors I saw snuck into the 3rd round, it's crazy what we're asking our rookie receivers to do nowadays as opposed to what was happening even 10 years ago with elite guys, elite prospects like Amari Cooper was. So there is one more very obvious one, but Jamar Chase, Amari Cooper is 2 of those answers. So H-Train says, Team 6 is throwing away money. Jamar Chase, Devon Achane, Pacheco, Tank Dell, Jalen Hurts. I don't know if I like I don't know if I like that build. You want to get ahead on that run with Lamar Jackson, Anthony Richardson going, getting the quarterback. That's the correct idea. Tank Dell is my wide receiver 2, makes me a little bit uneasy. But if you're taking a running back early enough, like they did with Pacheco, fine. And Devon Achane, we've talked about. I don't want to go that direction, but the boom potential is there, and you're safeguarding yourself in the case with Pacheco. So fine. I totally get that to a certain extent. Kenneth Walker, Alvin Kamara go later on here in the 5th, and then Ramondre Stevenson, Aaron Jones, the next running backs off the board. I wait on that with Rashad White, James Cook. I think all those guys are kind of the same, and I like the running backs a little bit later on. My boy, Uncle Ted also is the Rashawn Johnson guy. Every single chat that we ever did has Rashawn Johnson mentioned in some shape or form. Love to see him in here. He's talking about DK Metcalf, certain receivers, or taking Cooper Kupp, which I don't, maybe that was a little bit later on. I don't know if Kupp would have been available at that point, which is fine. There is like the part of me that wants to push all in on the receivers, but I think I can get some guys a little bit later. And I am one of those that I need to have in this format, the running backs and a certain tight end or 2 down for that. So, all right. Just waiting out the picks here. I'm going to mute myself because we're not doing any like things in the mic with the drinking of the juice or coffee. That's a different program. You guys can tune into that probably later at this time of the night. We're not doing that. So I'm muting myself while we go on. All right. Okay. Pick is coming up here again soon. Oh boy. Let's see. Oh God, am I going to do it again? I don't want to do that again. Make my decision easier. Team number 6. Come on. No, that's not what I wanted. That was the worst case scenario. Dalton Kincaid is a massive value right now. His ADP is at 59. We're talking about pick 69. I was hoping CJ Stroud would fall to this point. Obviously did not, which that was to be expected. One of the better values. And I wasn't exactly shocked to see that. I can't take Dalton Kincaid. I've made this mistake before. I've taken George Kittle and Kyle Pitts in one draft in the first 5 or 6 rounds together. That never worked out the way I wanted to. So let's go ahead and make sure we get the last, I think, difference maker at receiver in Jaden Reed, who is just going to be out in the field often enough. Like, okay, Christian Watson plays and is healthy all year. I think he's out on the field. I think Romeo Doubs would be the other receiver out in the field, but Jaden Reed does not get taken off the field in that scenario. And it's why I will feel very comfortable saying Jaden Reed is my wide receiver 4. We're hoping for upside, obviously, but I don't know why he would get taken off the field in this case. And if Christian Watson gets hurt, which he does always, then it's Dontavian Wicks that slides in. It's not like Jaden Reed's losing any time. I don't think Jaden Reed gets a bump either. That's where his 6th round value makes complete sense to me. But of the receivers, and just go over this list because I know you guys can't see it. After Jaden Reed, it's DeAndre Hopkins, Jordan Addison, Adunze, Smith-Njigba, Lab McConkey. Are you taking any of those guys over Jaden Reed? Tell me in the chat or in the comments if that is the case. Again, Hopkins, Addison, Adunze, Smith-Njigba, McConkey, Jameson Williams over Jaden Reed. I don't think I'm taking any of those guys over that. So happy it broke the way it did with that call. So What do we do here? I think I know what my answer is going to be, but I don't like it. It's not going to be the fun call. Yeah. Jared says nope, especially with DeAndre Hopkins out. And I was never drafting Hopkins anyway. That's one of those that I was like, okay, great. Totally fine to fade, but I would imagine I'll be very curious to see where his ADP ends up falling, and that's the case. So H Train mentioned Team 6 is going to draft Joe Burrow. with Jalen Hurts, that's choice. H Train, you never know what people do. Bowers going in round 7. Oh, okay. Well, that makes me taking Mark Andrews just a round and a half earlier way better. And they also have a tight end too in Laporta in round 3. Okay, wow, so they would have been very upset, the Team 12, that I passed on Kincaid, given the Mark Andrews combo. That is really interesting. I mean, Bowers has the opportunity to be really good. We had mentioned on the SiriusXM show a little bit earlier, it doesn't take that much to assume a scenario where Bowers gets 80 catches and like 900 yards in that case. And it's like, great. You've got to, but you are forced to put Bowers in your flex spot, whereas maybe you would have some flexibility elsewhere. I don't know if I could go in that direction. Bowers over Evan Ingram, George Kittle, and I think Jake Ferguson also on this ADP is a pretty nuts decision. Overall, I'm going to go running back here, and I'll post the chat because we've got 40 seconds. These are the guys left: Najee Harris, DeAndre Swift, Zamir White, David Montgomery. Of those running backs, who are you going to end up taking? Is there anyone that you have a favorite for? Najee Harris, DeAndre Swift, Zamir White, or David Montgomery? I know who I do, or I know how I have a favorite of, but I'm curious if the chat does, as we got 40 seconds before I end up making my selection. I've been burned about 15 times now with one of these guys. I'm sure I'll get burned again with another one of these, and Antonio Pierce might burn me with a third. So it's not all things being equal. Nino saying Monty, Reed's going White, Zamir White in that case. So you guys are not picking the ones that I want to pick. I'm not sure. You should be reinforcing my smart thoughts, not making me deliberate on this any further. But I'm going to take DeAndre Swift because I feel pretty comfortable as a pass catcher. He gets involved. You think about Najee Harris, Jalen Warren splitting time. Zamir White gets a lot of carries. They did draft Lob, the guy in the 6th round, who I think is going to be pass catcher. Now that offense just might stink enough where it doesn't matter. But this is like, of those guys, and I would rather have James Conner and Aaron Jones are kind of in that mix too. But of those running backs, Swift's value in a full point PPR format matters to me for the Bears. And I mean, I'll spoil this now. I guess if anyone's drafting, they can snipe me. I'm going to take Khalil Herbert too, not because I want to have a stack of the Bears rushing attack, but I really feel confident that Khalil Herbert and or Elijah Mitchell, two guys with their contracts ending this year, are going to get traded. And you look at like the Dallas backfield, or I mean, there's like a bunch that we were listing off, but there are so many spots where Khalil Herbert at minimum is a running back 2, if not the outright starter for a team. And in the case of San Francisco, who has Isaac Renda, who I really like a lot, and Jordan Mason, or Roshan Johnson, who's not a very good player, despite what Uncle Ted wants to tell me, there's draft capital invested in that backup position that they can kind of wait. The teams respectively can. So I'll take DeAndre Swift as the pass catcher for that group. I still think he gets close to 1,000 receiving yards. If he gets injured, whatever, it's going to happen at the running back spot. I'm not really worried about it. If Swift is healthy in that offense, he's getting a lot of workload as a pass catcher too. So yeah, Jared says full point Zamir White is just tough. Lots of risk. They're down early. He can pass. And I don't know if the Raiders are going to be down early. Like, Zamir White might get 20 carries a game. But if you are an opposing defense, other than Devontae Adams and I guess Bowers to a certain extent, are they really beating you any other way? No. Like, I think that's where you can kind of sit on that rushing attack. And even if he gets 20 carries, if he pushes for closer to 100 yards, I don't think that outcome happens often. The Raiders defense isn't very good either, so they might be forced to pass. And then Zamir White, I believe that might be the issue. He's going to be off the field. He was off the field in that scenario in Georgia for James Cook. I don't know why they'd be different in the NFL. So I can't in a full point format do Zamir White. But it looks like everyone's kind of made the decision that I did. Fading Najee Harris, fading Zamir White is really interesting. I was expecting those guys to go pretty swiftly afterwards. Not meant to make a joke there. Jonathan Brooks going in the 7th round. I was watching Alan Seslowsky's draft from a couple weeks ago. That was a 9th round pick. I'm not taking a guy that's going to miss at least the first 4 games of the season in the 7th round. I think Chuba Hubbard is going to play often. And even if you think that Jonathan Brooks is a good player, which fair enough if you do, I'm not trying to dissuade that per se. I need my running back to be healthy at the beginning of the year and not be in one of the league's worst offenses, which even if Bryce Young improves dramatically, they're still going to be really bad. So I don't want anything to do with Jonathan Brooks, and pretty shocked that he went as high as he did here. So we're going to get that run on quarterbacks. I was anticipating that was going to happen here with, I would assume, team number 2 also taking one. Team 7, the other team that needs a quarterback off the board. So I'd imagine you'll get those guys. Joe Burrow and his injury history early on, I guess in the training camp offseason period, but also last year, and it makes me really nervous. I'll defer to Corey, who I've seen on the stream is also an athletic trainer. Maybe I shouldn't be worried about Joe Burrow's stuff, but when you're only doing like 2 or 3 days of practice, that's terrifying. If I'm going to take a quarterback in the 7th round who's only practicing a couple days a week, and yeah, he's got the rapport already with Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. A wrist injury that has never been seen in the quarterback before is scary. You can't tell me it's not. I like Joe Burrow a lot. His Eminem haircut notwithstanding, he's still outside my league. I think top 10 quarterbacks at this point. I haven't pushed past Dak Prescott. I haven't pushed past Jordan Love at this point. I think Brock Purdy I'd probably take over Joe Burrow as well. And I'm not worried about Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, but there's just too many circumstances that I think you need to be worried about if you're taking a quarterback in this position. So upside in the 6 points per passing touchdown league, get it entirely. I don't want Joe Burrow whatsoever in that case. So. All right. So in round 7, we had 5 tight ends go off the board. Bowers started like a mini run. I think the teams at the back end of the first round had to be a little bit more worried. I guess they were in the early first round, but now coming back. So George Kittle, Evan Ingram, Njoku, Jake Ferguson. Maybe the Mark Andrews roster build thing makes me anxious, but I feel much better making the Mark Andrews call and then getting Jaden Reed and DeAndre Swift than a vice versa spots. I like getting an early tight end. As you can see, it kind of plays out typically, and I have the data for this for the past couple of years. The tight end position has not been valued highly in the NFFC. I'm surprised that it's more or less going that direction outside of Dalton Kincaid, who was probably one of the better values that we've seen thus far in the draft. And then conversely, Brock Bowers being one of the bigger reaches, really curious call for that too. So pick is coming up here. Let's see. Yeah, 2 away. Still got my running backs more or less that I liked that we mentioned earlier. Obviously, still need a quarterback. I'd be mildly shocked if they ended up taking Jordan Love. Let's just go ahead and do that stack. I'm prepared to be disappointed. This is the biggest league that I do all year. Obviously, the upsides are financially astronomical. So I recognize that I have doomed my favorite team. For those 600 of you watching live right now, I bleed green and gold. I'm prepared for Jordan Love to just be out week 1. You think about Aaron Rodgers and his success, his breakout. He had that broken, I think it was the shoulder or arm, and then got the contract extension. So we did things a little bit differently here in Green Bay now with Jordan Love getting only 8 games to prove himself. But I have probably doomed him. I'm well aware of that. I'm very nervous, but this is a 6 points per passing touchdown league, and Jordan Love is going to be a guy that I think throws a lot of touchdowns. Josh Jacobs has a lot of things. I'm not sure he's a red zone savant necessarily, and certainly we know AJ Dillon is not. I'm all in on the idea of Jordan Love being a top 10 fantasy quarterback, which I think is where he ended up going. Dak Prescott, Kyler Murray. Love was number 10 overall. And I'll take Jordan Love over Purdy. Sometimes, if you get 30 leagues, I'm probably taking Jordan Love over Purdy in 20 of them. But I think Purdy's going to be totally fine as well. And so long as Brandon Ayuk is there, which I think it would be stupid if he wasn't, totally fine with what that offense will look like for San Francisco. And you got George Kittle obviously healthy. Everyone's healthy right now. Yeah, Jared says Dak is once again the best quarterback. Steele, we're talking about round 8. Let's look at and I would agree with that. I think I'd take Dak in this format again, 6 points per passing touchdown over Kyler Murray. That feels very obvious to me. I'd take him over Joe Burrow. And the way that worked out with McCaffrey and Derrick Henry, that is a really good. Normally, you can assume that first team gets screwed over in some way by positional runs and they can't be aggressive. I think Diggs is a bit of a reach, but otherwise that team looks really solid, and you get the pairing with Jake Ferguson as well too. That's a good team. I think Team 1 is doing a fantastic job thus far. Let's see. Corey was answering my question about the injury prone. Some players are injury prone. I'll be cautious if he has to change his football grip or on the pitch count. And it sounds like the pitch count is a thing, although I don't know if that, like if you're resting a quarterback, you're saying don't throw today. That sounds like a pitch count to me, right? But maybe it's just what happens normally. And I understand quarterbacks in training camp aren't throwing literally every single day, but I would be nervous in the case of Joe Burrow. And Corey goes on to say, taking days off, normal thing to avoid tendonitis. I just feel like he's had a lot of really weird injuries. So, all right. Oh, yes. All right. So the guy that I was deliberating on a couple of rounds ago, I get Najee Harris now. And I feel really, really good about my backfield to give me a floor. It's not a sexy backfield whatsoever. Joe Mixon is going to give you 1,000 yards, I think, conservatively. DeAndre Swift, total wise, probably gets you 1,000, 1,100, and you're hoping with the receptions. And I get the hype for Jaylen Warren. I really think with Arthur Smith, it's Najee Harris getting the ball. And you can say, well, hey, Bijan Robinson didn't. I think Najee Harris is more like Tyler Algier, who had a role in Arthur Smith's offense now in Pittsburgh. And Najee Harris is not Derrick Henry whatsoever, but same concept. So very good with that. We know Najee Harris can be a pass catcher. It's not Ben Roethlisberger's corpse throwing him the ball anymore, but he can do that. And you're not tipping off a defense saying, oh, we're going to pass here with Jaylen Warren out there. So I ecstatic to have the Love combo, to get Love and then also get Najee Harris where I did. So looking okay with the 3 running backs right now, the 4 receivers, 4 in the first 5 rounds. Not a build that I always do, but yeah. Corey says, Arthur loves the backup running backs. Yes, he does. Yes, it is. If we're saying talent, is Najee Harris the backup running back? Is Jaylen Warren better? So therefore he's going to love Najee Harris more. Who's to say? Arthur Smith hates all of us and probably himself as well too, with the way he was play calling in Atlanta. We'll have to find out. So, all right, we're going to take a coffee drinking break and we'll come right back. Look at this run on running backs. So we had Jerome Ford, which if you're concerned about Nick Chubb status, Deonta Foreman got injured. I think it was today. I have no idea the severity of it. But Jerome Ford was obviously a great running back last year for fill-in status for Nick Chubb. Tony Pollard, Tajay Spears. Ironic that the Titans, both the guys go back-to-back picks. Of course, I took Najee Harris. Then you have Javonte Williams. We had mentioned that with Audric Estime and Sean Payton doing dumb things. Devin Singletary probably is the next one of that group that I would have taken. And then Austin Eckler, I think, rounding things out in a full-point PPR form. I want nothing to do with Austin Eckler. The people that do the 1 year too early thing have to be ecstatic that they got 1 year too early correctly for Austin Eckler, because he looked toast. And you can talk to me about being injured. I think famously to that Packers run where he was like 13 miles per hour, one of the slowest among starting running backs in the past decade. I watched the Chargers perversely too much, even post Herbert injury last year. That was not the same guy. And I don't think Jaden Daniels takes advantage of Austin Eckler at all. I don't know if Brian Robinson gets much value either. He'll probably come off the board shortly with the running back run that we've had. But I want nothing to do with Austin Eckler. So that's, again, I don't know if it was H-Train saying that or somebody else. Team 6, choices, making choices. I like the Team 6 choices. Somebody else, it might have been Uncle Ted saying that it's an 11-team league when somebody makes choices like that. But yeah, I'm all the way out on Austin Eckler. And if we've had a lot of teams now do the 3 running backs, Zach Moss now goes off the board. I'm curious for the chat's perspective. Is there a team that you like the most that has taken 3 running backs through the first 9 rounds? I think we have basic math here, 7 or 8 teams that have more or less done this. The Saquon Barkley, Kyron Williams combo gets Tony Pollard. There's a lot of depth later on that you can very easily pull this off. In a sharp league like this, I would not want to have the running backs like Tony Pollard be my running back 2. Although I guess DeAndre Swift qualifies for that, so maybe I'm failing my own advice. Either way, I really like that possibility around 7, 8, 9. You can comfortably get guys you like, Rashad White's of the world, who maybe I don't like, but the concept applies to them, and still get safety nets before. And I don't know, wasn't Alexander Madison kind of this price tag last year? And that was just, he's a backup to a situation that might work out. We haven't had this kind of depth for these guys, and it'll change next year. This is going to be one of those you can really benefit if you're waiting at running back, but I think even if you're getting depth, one of the better years for that. So curious in the chat, through 10 rounds, who has the best 3-round running back, or 3 running back stack, I should say, out there? Blake Corum, that would have been another one I really liked. I'm not sure if it would have fallen to this range, if I would have taken Blake Corum at pick 10, possibly, because I've more or less just been going off the ADP board for this stuff, but that's a good one. Really, now the ADP is just directly set to all the quarterbacks: Brock Purdy, Tua, Jared Goff, Jaden Daniels, Caleb Williams, Trevor Lawrence, Justin Herbert, and then Kirk Cousins. Trey Benson is the lone positional guy among the first 7 or 8 on the ADP available. Another guy that I would have loved to have fall to me at Romeo Doubs. I'm all the way in. I guess it's the Packer homer in me, but the quotes from Jair Alexander about Romeo Doubs being the second best receiver he's played against, Devontae Adams being the first one. There's something to that. He's talking to his guy, right? Like we're giving our teammates cred, whatever. But Doubs was the red zone threat for that offense last year. That doesn't change. If he becomes a better intermediate route threat and just is like an 1,100-yard guy, wouldn't be shocked at all. And that doesn't mean that Jaden Reed or Christian Watson can't also kind of operate that same way. They just take lesser of that pie. Doubs is quickly becoming one of my favorites, the way he's taken over that receiver room from a leadership perspective and the expectations for the Packers. So my pick is coming up here just, right now, and I have not been exactly looking. A lot of the receivers. Well, okay, so we'll just do... I think we'll just do this one first, and then what ADP 117. A lot of hemming and hawing as we look at these calls. So I think there's one receiver better than everyone else, and I'm really worried about missing out on the next range of receivers. I shouldn't do this. All right, here you go, Jarrett. This one's for you. I took Josh Palmer. I think it's entirely possible that Josh Palmer is the wide receiver 1 for that team. Now, Herbert being injured makes me even more nervous. I don't want anything to do with Herbert, so probably shouldn't be trying to find the wide receiver 1 on the Chargers offense or a team that has a quarterback I don't want. But the chemistry was there, and I this is not yet posted on RotoWire, but it likely will be soon. We did the team previews. I covered the Chargers for RotoWire. In the 5 games over the past 2 years that Mike Williams and Keenan Allen were out, Palmer got 40 catches and 356 yards in those 5 games. And I've heard people be like, oh, well, he disappoints when those guys are out. How could you possibly be disappointed about 350 yards and 40 catches in 5 games? And one of those was with Easton Stick in that 63-0 blowout at halftime, throwing him the ball. So, yeah, and Nino mentions McConkey seems like good competition. He is, but you can have 2 receivers. In fact, I think the Chargers only have 2 receivers. It certainly isn't Quentin Johnston, who is probably one of my biggest fantasy faux pas, one of my worst mistakes I've made in a long time. That guy looks just dreadfully bad, still dropping passes at practice. And I don't mind the value that DJ Chark could have for the offense, but he's not impacting things fantasy-wise. It's not the tight ends. Like, raise your hand if you could name the Chargers tight ends. It takes a little bit. There's some roster tomfoolery that's happened over the past 3 months. I think it's Palmer, and I think it's going to be Lad McConkey. And there isn't even like a pass-catching running back in that mix. So if Justin Herbert's limited, fine. But Palmer's going to walk into 120 targets, and I think he just converts that pretty easily as the wide receiver 5. Plus, I like Yeah, Hayden Hurst. Good job, Jared. And that isn't even the first tight end either. They actually signed Will Dissly from the Seahawks to a 3-year, $20 million deal to be their blocking guy. They're one of those dumb teams that has to have a Josh Oliver. So you can give me 3 to 5 minutes. Hayden Hurst, Will Dissly, really exciting group of tight ends. I still like Donald Parham. He's a Madden beast, but I would not want that from a pass catching group. So you look at, Rashid Shaheed went before. I would have maybe wanted Shaheed in that instance. Curtis Samuel, he might work out. Absolutely might work out. Somebody else can make that call, though. I don't want to figure out if Curtis Samuel is going to be the guy in the Joe Brady offense 4 years later with Josh Allen as the QB. I'm going to do the 1 year early thing on Tyler Lockett. Marvin Mims is probably one of the bigger reaches at the moment, but certainly a positive guy in his own right if the Broncos can get things going. So I was looking at Keon Coleman back into the 9th round. I like Keon Coleman and Rashid Shaheed, and and Dobbs, and that's those guys, and then Palmer. So when there's a tier of 6 or 7 receivers that are going off, I just want nothing to do with them at that point. So unfortunately, I was hoping Zeke fell to me. I know it's a stupid old guy. Rico Dowdle might be better, blah, 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 blah. But that was one of those, if I take Palmer early, am I passing him on a guy like Zeke? And in this case, I was. So good call out for team number 12 to make that selection. I want to make sure I don't even think I've tweeted this live. I just sent it to friends, and that was it for this draft, which is great. You know what? Nobody on my Twitter account needs to know how bad or good this might be. So we'll just repost this right now and let them know possibly that I'm live. And my pick is up too, which was probably not good that I wasn't paying attention. So, all right. Yeah, Fryermuth, who I liked a lot. That somebody definitely was listening to that one. They knew. Okay, let's just take the last of the running back tier, which in this case I think is Chuba Hubbard. I think Jonathan Brooks goes on the pup list for at least the 4 weeks. And am I ever playing Chuba Hubbard? Probably not with Joe Mixon, DeAndre Swift, and Najee Harris. But conversely, that's 3 running backs that you're not like super eager to have on your lineups either. So maybe there is a scenario. I think the Panthers play the Saints week 1. Okay, you could talk me into playing Chuba Hubbard against that Saints defense. The vibes in New Orleans just seem really bad. We were talking about with Chris Olave earlier. So yeah, I just want one other guy. And eventually Jonathan Brooks is going to be the starter for Carolina. Do I want the starting running back in a bad offense anyway? No, not in round 8. In round 12, though, when you're talking about backups like Marshawn Lloyd or Zach Charbonnet, that's a different conversation altogether. And it's possible that the conversation is having with Khalil Herbert or Elijah Mitchell that they get traded. The Panthers could do that with Chuba Hubbard too, who actually proved to be an effective starter at times last season in an offense that looked awful, just absolutely dreadful. And you could trade Chuba Hubbard for the Panthers for a 6th round pick and just be happy to get some sort of draft capital after the Bryce Young snafu that they had last year. So I'm all in. There's really no scenario where I don't think Chuba Hubbard makes sense at this pick as a floor spot. And okay, fine. You'll get a quarterback at some point. Jaden Daniels, the last starting quarterback to go, well, technically second to last, the Pat Freiermuth guy, who had to have been listening, because I've talked about Pat Freiermuth as a guy that I definitely would take at that spot, even with Mark Andrews on my roster. I like Pat Freiermuth a lot this year as the pretty obvious target 2 in Pittsburgh, whether it be Fields, whether it be Russell Wilson. Roman Wilson's not, I don't think anything more than a gadget guy in year 1 or like a speed dude, like somebody that you put on the field to do something to help NFL offenses be good, but not for fantasy. And I don't think Van Jefferson's any good. I think the Rams are really dumb at drafting receivers, as proven with Tutu Atwell, and they might have got lucky with Puka Nacua. I'm saying this because a Rams fan's listening. But that Van Jefferson's not going to be a huge factor in that offense. It's George Pickens, it's Freiermuth, and probably the Jalen Warren and Najee Harris. Like, those are your 4 best players if you're saying, how's my team going to win? So Dontavian Wicks, if I wanted to keep rolling with the Packers stack, it makes sense. Of course, I have Jordan Love and Jaden Reed. I think Wicks is really good and probably the best wide receiver 4 in the NFL. Somebody could correct me if I'm wrong in that. But I just think if Christian Watson's healthy, he's playing. Dobbs is healthy, he's playing. If Jaden Reed's healthy, he's playing. And I don't really want to draft a backup receiver at this point. Doing that with the running backs, fine. There's a scarce commodity. And I mentioned this Mari Puig on SiriusXM just a bit ago. We're doing this draft August 2nd, probably universally a bad time to do it because it's so early. We have like 15 injuries that just occurred yesterday from training camp and now do that for 4 more weeks. The amount of tickets that I want to try to cash in on running backs is probably the correct call as opposed to receivers. And Wicks feels more like a receiver ticket. And maybe you do that when your team has Deebo Samuel as your wide receiver 2 and seeing Ray Davis and Keenan Allen there. Like I get it entirely, but I don't know if my roster build really makes sense when I have Josh Palmer the way I did a little bit early on. So, okay. Jared says, I like Palmer over all the other guys that are just going, that's good. If you bet against a team win total, take a second. Age trade, be nice. There are so many mean things that happen in this world. So many people that do dumb things. Let's be nice to Team 6. We can think that they might have a bad draft. We're not taking out mortgages just to immediately cash. Yeah, I would assume that their win totals can be not very good too. Not in the defense of Team 6. But for those of you who aren't aware with this scoring format, obviously the 6 points per passing touchdown, point per reception. But the other part, I think it's the first 2 weeks, but I know it's at least week 1. It's the top 6 highest scoring teams get the win over the bottom 6 scoring teams. I think it does that for the first 2 weeks of the season. You still set your lineup, obviously, but it's not on win-loss record or matchup. It's just based on points scored. And then when you're talking about overall finals, getting to that $250,000 grand prize, point total does matter. Like you have the division winner, and then typically leagues will accelerate a second person to that grand final, and it's based on total points. So whenever Team 6 is doing these stupid things, Age trade, we are going to be nice. We are a RotoWire defined stream of being relatively kind. You can say taking the second mortgage out on Alan Seslowsky's ones. That's great. I'm sure that Jeff Erickson would love that as well too. He get a good laugh. But we are going to be kind enough to Team 6 that it's the choices they're making. It's whatever. All right, so I'm trying my best. Age train, understand. I'll take the under the points too. Gosh, okay. So at quarterback, that's the next area that I probably wanted to address. And if I hadn't taken Chuba Hubbard, there was that tier ranking for me at running back, one of the last ones of that group. It came at the expense of getting a back. Brock Purdy falling to round 12 is insane. Like you could say whatever you want. You think he's a system quarterback. I have said those things, and I might think them a little bit. That offense is going to be great. Kyle Shanahan's awesome. It's not the playoffs. He's going to have Brock Purdy producing at quarterback 12 numbers. You're doing matchup quarterback stuff in that instance, right? Like, would I play Jordan Love, I don't know, against last year been the Chiefs defense? No. So then will I be able to pick up somebody like Drake May and make a difference? Likely not. That's where Brock Purdy comes to play. And I like having that in the rare instance where I'm waiting at quarterback position. But with Jaden Daniels off the board, probably wasn't going to consider him. Purdy off the board, Trevor Lawrence off the board. Now my guy, Kirk Cousins, that becomes an accelerated issue where you can't really play matchup-based situations anymore. 3 quarterbacks, though, interesting. I don't know if I would have chose to do that, even though I like Romeo Dobbs. That is a interesting call overall. So I want to make sure I get my pick in here. Oh, and as usual, it becomes a choice. I want to make sure any receivers that I like this range, not particularly so. We had Pat Freiermuth go off the board, which would have been my guy at tight end. Running back, I just mentioned a lot of these guys have been people I don't want, so it's going to be quarterback. And Tua is an interesting one. Caleb Williams is an interesting one. I think in the case, we gotta. This is the problem. Is I'm not positive of those guys, and I should probably be more mindful of bye weeks as well too. I guess on week 10. We'll take Tua. We're okay with that. I can make that one work. And, if he gets hurt, pretty easy cut. So we know what to do then if that's the case. So I can rotate between Tua and Jordan Love relatively easy from a matchup perspective. And then quarterback, the last starting quarterback, Caleb Williams, goes off there. I'd imagine Caleb Williams is going to be the guy he took either way. It doesn't really matter. Wonder if Team 10 would have liked to take a quarterback instead of Pat Freiermuth as well too. That's expecting to have 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 go off before my next pick. I wouldn't have went that direction. I would have been surprised in that. So. Team 3 is the rake. He's going to hate bye weeks and end up dropping good. Yeah, that's I agree. And I know, Alex, I saw you on the Seslowsky podcast as well when he was doing his live stream too. And there was 3 teams in Seslowsky's draft that had 3 quarterbacks. I don't get it. Like, I'm going the other way. If I'm going to take a position often at this point doing a draft August 2nd, it's not the one that I can only start one of those guys. And it's not super flex where you can make a quarterback work either. Like, I'll take Tua because I know I can matchup wise work with Jordan Love. That's it though. I'm not going to go any other direction with that position. And I think taking 3, I'll be curious to see how many teams choose to do that. I would assume team 10 is going to as well, with Caleb Williams being the guy, but I have no idea. All right. First kicker, of course. Well, I think, wait, no, that might be defense. Yeah. Oh, first defense off the board. Interesting. Never go full. Yeah. Okay, Alex. I get. Yeah. Didn't read it out loud. Probably shouldn't have shown that one on there. If I'm telling A-Train to be nice, team 6, I need to make sure Alex is being streamer friendly here for me as I'm going through the comments. Purdy, like Love, gets the boost in the 6. Exactly. Yes. I agree with you, Jared. Gets the boost at 6 points per passing touchdown format. Completely agree. I'll look at team 9, H-Train. I want to make sure that I don't run into a scenario where I'm picking between quarterbacks again here with my selection. So guys on the board right now among non-quarterbacks, I'll include the flex: Kendre Miller, TJ Hawkinson, Cole Kmet, Quentin Johnston, Antonio Gibson, Luke Musgrave, Rico Dottle. Not a huge fan of any of these guys. I don't know if there's a spot where I'm really in love with a whole lot. So we could go a little bit earlier on some of these. I want to make sure with the ADP the way it is, I'm not making a mistake. I'm missing somebody. Yeah, that's something here. A lot of hemming and hawing as usual. This is great radio. Love to watch this. I just don't think he's going to be good. A.D. Mitchell's buried. Let's wait it out, Joe, all the way. All right, so I'm taking Gabe Davis, and this is strictly off a recommendation from Mario. Again, we have the show. We do it every Friday, Sirius XM, 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern. The Jacksonville offense might very well stink if Prez Taylor is your offensive coordinator, like they did last year. And obviously, if Trevor Lawrence gets injured, everything's bad anyway. But Gabe Davis probably plays a whole bunch, and he's not doing the field stretching role that he did in Buffalo, right? We had Stephon Diggs in the middle. We had Dawson Knox and Duncan Kincaid at the end. You had James Cook doing. The Bills had a certain function with what they want out of the receivers, and Gabe Davis was kind of typecast as the guy that's going to run deep all the time. Wrongly so. Like, he's a bigger guy and was really fast and did do a good job when those routes were open. But in Jacksonville, you're going to make the bigger, faster guy do that in Brian Thomas. And then Gabe Davis, as a result, becomes in the middle, intermediate, probably like a boundary guy that catches within 10 to 15 yards, 10 to 20 yards. I would rather have Christian Kirk. I think obviously Evan Ingram, and most people will be like, yeah, no kidding, Joe. I'm lower on Evan Ingram. I thought Evan Ingram's value last year really came directly when Christian Kirk was injured. I don't think he's a 100 reception tight end this year at all. Not after Brian Thomas, and certainly after Gabe Davis too. So the Gabe Davis thing, Gabe Davis thing, that's really what he is, especially with Buffalo and now possibly with Jacksonville. If Gabe Davis is to make good on that fantasy value, which is around 13 guy, who cares? You're hoping for like a 60 catch, 800 yards, and more importantly, has obvious scenarios where if Evan Ingram were injured, if Christian Kirk were injured, that you can say, I will start Gabe Davis in my flex. Can you do that for Troy Franklin? I don't know. Can you do that for Darnell Mooney? I don't think so. And I like Kirk Cousins and the Falcons a lot. I'm not going anywhere near Darnell Mooney. Demario Douglas is different though. And I was kind of hoping he would fall or Michael Wilson would fall a little bit further, but everyone's pretty sharp. We're all sharp here in the NFFC draft. Those two, you can project some upside. Even in the best case scenario, it's Trey McBride, Marvin Harrison occupying 60% of the targets for Kyler Murray. Michael Wilson probably does 20% of that, 25% of that, and you have the Greg Dortch of the world after that. So Michael Wilson is probably the right call. I was being a bit shrewd with the ADP draft. Demario Douglas, a really compelling case too, and I guess I can say this with Josh Downs off the board. I mean, like Josh Downs made Drake May what he was at North Carolina from a slot receiver perspective. The reports for Drake May have not been good in training camp. We're only a weekend, who cares? But the days that he has looked better, it's because he's had Demario Douglas on the field who's been banged up some sort of like small hand. His hand isn't small. I don't want to make that joke. Some minor hand issue. That could have been bad too if I stopped at that point. I like Demario Douglas a lot from a receiver perspective. So it's really curious. I'm saying, hey, let's take some dart throws at running back, take dart throws at running back, and then here you go. Let's backup quarterback and Gabe Davis, the receiver. But Gabe is going to have a factor in this. So team one is doing that approach, right? Tyler Algier, and then if I'm reading that, Antonio Gibson probably falls a little bit further. And I know some people like Rico Dowdle. If I had Zeke, I might as well have just taken Dowdle and gotten the Cowboys backfield maybe. For the most part, I feel pretty fine. So let's talk about team 9, because I know the chat's mentioned that a few times. A-Train has said that too. I got to pull it up in the big board here on my side. AJ, oh, well, wait, gosh. Thank you. I forgot. We were talking about how my team was great. I literally had forgot that my team was team 9 and that we were just blowing smoke up the streamer's butt here. That was a mean trick, and no one needs to clip that. We're not doing that joke. That's too embarrassing. Other teams besides team 9 that I like. I'm curious to hear what you guys would say out there. The team 10 with Jahmyr Gibbs, Marvin Harrison, Malik Neighbors, and Christian Kirk. That's how I would build I'm not sure about the players per se, but that's how I build my team with those 4 receivers, and then getting James Conner, I think one of the better values at running back 2, surrounding that with high upside pass catching running backs in Jalen Warren and Tajay Spears. Awesome. And then doing Caleb Williams, Justin Herbert as your quarterback combo makes complete sense. Then you faded tight end with Pat Freiermuth, who I like a lot, and fading quarterback. That's the right build, though, of how things kind of would materialize. And I think that's a H-Train. Yes. Thank you. Thank you for being positive and pulling the wool over my eyes as to which team we were being positive about. I should have understood the assignment on that, and I failed. So we're approaching probably the scenario where you're taking defenses. I don't know if I really want to do that yet. Let's see. The running back dart throws, I think it's getting close to that time to go ahead and look at, like, in this case, I'll take, I don't know if I want to. I don't know if I want to take Khalil Herbert yet. Ooh. We could go. All right. Well, just in case someone were to be a little bit cheeky with the streamer, let's go ahead and get the Isaiah Likely part. We're covered now. If Mark Andrews were to get injured, that's the right call. And it means that I don't really have to take a tight end, as a backup, which I don't normally do anyhow. And there's enough of these running backs later on, and I'll just make sure I have them all identified as I'm talking, that I feel comfortable throwing something at down the road, and we'll be good there. So Wan'Dale Robinson, another receiver, Elijah Mitchell, Deneric Prince. Deneric Prince is probably one of the highest risers, I would say, of the guys in this position at the moment. Very clearly seems to find as the backup to Isaiah Pacheco in Kansas City, which is news for a lot of people because Clyde Edwards-Helaire is still there. Prince is actually like a legitimately really good prospect and totally capable. I don't know if doing 3-down work. I don't know if the Chiefs would ever have it happen if Pacheco were to miss time, and he does, but would take a lot more of the snaps than Edwards-Helaire. And, Jake Latarski and I on the RotoWire Podcast Network every Tuesday during the season go waiver wire pickups. Deneric Prince is going to be one of those guys that I'm mentioning right off the rip, because I think if, like, week 0, week 1 pickups, you want that kind of guy just in the off chance something were catastrophically wrong with Pacheco or something like that. I think Deneric Prince actually is a really, really shrewd selection that was very buried, I would imagine, on ADP boards out there. So good call with that one right there. All right, approaching my pick here. We got the defense. The defense run is beginning. I'm going to just wait on that. I don't really care too much. Making sure I'm not in a too horrible position backup wise. this is much harder on the streaming perspective, but I never really care about it here. Let's go and take another one of the sexy names first. I'll go Audric Estime, maybe just to get a kudos from Corey, who had mentioned about an hour ago into the show. I don't think Sean Payton's a very good coach, or at least he, in his hubris with Denver and the contract he got, is a good coach anymore. I would rather play Javonte Williams. I don't think I'd play Jaleel McLaughlin. But if your offense needs to have a role for McLaughlin, then you have an issue anyway. If Javonte Williams' knee is really just busted, or conversely, the Broncos trade Javonte Williams and just say, let's, we're going to stink this year anyway. Let's get draft capital, really cheap running back to sort of build and develop. That's the guy that I think you can make complete sense. And I'll take a risk on Estime. Worst case, I just drop him week 1 for whatever flavor of the week running back ends up being there. That's where I'm going. I would have taken Noah Fant if I hadn't had Isaiah Likely to pick before. I'm rostering 2 tight ends from the same team, but it's the one scenario where I'd rather have Likely over I'd rather have Likely partnered with Mark Andrews. I would never take Likely naked, as the underdog best ball people would say in that language. And then Rashad Bateman, who had an ADP of 200, I thought for sure would fall back to me in the next pick, goes up the board, probably saving me for myself. We have 20 rounds. I don't need 7 receivers. That's not it's not the right thing to do, but I really do like Rashad Bateman. He's kind of been one of my guys this year. And if I was being a little bit cheeky about it, I maybe should have taken Bateman in the Gabe Davis spot. I think Gabe Davis is going to be better this year than Rashad Bateman theoretically, but their value is a whole lot closer than the ADP would suggest. We're getting a full 2-round advantage getting Rashad Bateman. We're seeing that run on defense. Of course, the Ravens being early on, no kicker run yet, which is interesting, but Jets, Niners, Browns, Cowboys, Steelers, Bills. You'll have to forgive me. I don't know the defenses all that well because I just do streaming defenses and I know those guys I'm on target. That's pretty much the first 5 that I see in some order: Ravens, Jets, Niners, Browns, Cowboys. After that, I don't think there's any difference with the Steelers. Well, maybe with TJ Watt. Any difference with the Bills or Texans than the Packers, who are probably defense 25. Yeah, so H-Train is saying take the Bears. So I want to make sure everyone is clear with this. I don't want to take a team that I hate. I'm not taking the Bears when I'm a Packers fan rooting for the Bears to implode. I want Caleb Williams to be healthy. I want DJ Moore certainly to be healthy. I'm not taking the Bears defense, and you could talk about their second half surge and what they did. It was a bunch of garbage teams. That's why they were able to be successful. I do not feel confident the Bears defense is all that effective. And I'm not making this bet with you, H-Train, but you can write it down. You can clip it, whatever it is. I think the Packers defense by the end of the year scores close to as many points. Give me like a 20 point difference between Packers defense and Bears defense. And we can do a side bet off air as to how we think that's going to go. I'm not taking the Bears defense. No, I have too much rooting interest in the green and gold. I take back what I said about you. That's your fault. That's your fault. You have incorrectly assumed that Team 9 knew what they're doing and knew what they're talking about with the Bears defense, Packers defense. That is all on you. I'm sorry. I have to imagine we're seeing the kickers go at some point. If we had this massive run on defense, like that's got to be a thing, right? Khalil Herbert goes off the board. So I was talking about him too much. That was the issue. And you had some of my other guys, like we mentioned with Rashad Bateman a little bit earlier. I'm fine with Estime valued over Khalil Herbert. The concept remains whether it be Elijah Mitchell, Khalil Herbert, Javonte Williams, one of those guys I think could get traded at some point, and if nothing else, to be quality backup on somebody else's team. If we're all doing the kicker thing, then the defense thing, then we probably should do the kicker thing. And I'm going to go ahead and take one of the two. It's either Brandon, but Justin Tucker is also insane. I have Mark Andrews and I have Isaiah Likely. This is good. I'm going to take Tucker over. With the week 14 bye, I think that matters a little bit. I'll take the Tucker week 14, and then I can just say, if I need to for the playoffs prepare for a kicker, great. Or I can already be checked out and not be paying attention to this team. And everyone who's playing this league will get free RotoWire subscriptions. Like that's a win for everyone, I think. So if we're all doing a run on defenses, I'll try to jump ahead of the curve and get that run on the kicker going. We'll see if that happens or not. But yeah, all right. I want to make sure I'm looking this up because we had mentioned this on the airwaves, and I was a little bit surprised. Yeah, okay. Let's read this through. Ex-player working with backups while these two are receiving starter depths. Not really surprising. And then that guy should not be competing for that role. Yeah. Okay. That's probably why he's fallen to where he has, but I'm not liking this. Yeah. Jared says, here's hoping Mitchell stays healthy long enough to get traded. He doesn't typically get injured during training camp though, right? It's, he normally gets injured in the 3 snaps that he gets as the starter. I guess there was if I wanted to have the backup to Joe Mixon, which I probably should have in Dameon Pierce, given the injury issues that Mixon's going with. It sounds like it's not very serious. In fact, I'm not too worried about, but in the case of Mitchell, yeah, I think it's possible. The Niners are a really dumb franchise for a lot of things, especially the running back position. I will never let any Niner fan forget the Jerick McKinnon signing because that was just stupid, or the Trey Sermon, ironically, who goes in the 3rd round for the Niners, and the way they invest resource at the position. But that's one of those where I just look at the rest of the backfields in the NFL and say, well, why wouldn't a team take a 6th round pick or a 7th round pick for Elijah Mitchell? And yeah. Jared says, correct. He's made it so far to week 1. Yes, that's what I want for my running backs. All right. The running back I would have taken instead of the kicker, which ended up being the wrong call, was Kamani Vidal, which, okay, if we're going to get upset about how the backup running backs go, I totally understand. It's not a big deal. Then I'm just going to go doubling down on this process and chasing to make sure I get backups. And we'll take A.J. Dillon, probably the highest he's ever went at some point. We have added 4 or 5 running backs. Yeah, a lot of running backs that have been added. So I think A.J. Dillon is going to be the backup to Josh Jacobs. I hope Josh Jacobs stays healthy. We've mentioned now a million times before, Josh Jacobs, I think, is the best value, no matter if you're drafting in NFFC, RTS Sports, ESPN, Yahoo, Underdog, where he's inexplicably a fifth round pick. Jacobs is going to be awesome this year. And because I say that, almost a guarantee, he'll get hurt week 1. I was all in a Nick Chubb last year. That was the guy that I took most among first-round guys. Of course, he had that nasty knee injury. The same concept will apply to Josh Jacobs because that's what my luck ends up being. So I'll take A.J. Dillon and protect myself. Again, just give me some dart throws. Even if A.J. Dillon is not very good, which I don't know if he is. I don't think he is, frankly, anymore. Just enough dart throws at that position, and I don't think Marshawn Lloyd is the backup. So that probably does it for my running back ads. I want to make sure I have – typically I like to leave with 7 running backs and 6 receivers or some combination of those both. It depends on the quarterbacks that are added, but let's see, 2, 4, 6. Yeah, maybe go 1 more running back if there's one left. Looking at that group, it's kind of gross. Not, Dalvin Cook's still there. If he's listed on the Ravens in this, maybe people are going to get confused. If Dalvin Cook was on the Ravens, yeah, I don't know if I would. Would that be like someone you'd be interested in if Dalvin Cook was still playing on the Ravens today? Would you rather have Dalvin Cook, or would you be drafting him? I don't think I'd still be considering it at all. Oh no. Oh, okay. I'm reading I'm not showing the chat. I'm reading the chat's comments, and Alex and H Train are making sure we're clear as to what backup running back the Raiders have, and that's all we're saying. Nothing more to that. Yeah, okay. Jared answers my question on Dalvin Cook. If he was at the Ravens, he would not. Yep. Retire. I'm going to pretend that Jared's not talking just to me and saying I should retire. If the state wants to pay me out at this point, Jared, for my retirement, I'm okay with that. I know you're maybe mentioning Dalvin Cook, who could also get paid out by the state, but I'll be fine to retire too if Wisconsin wants me to do so. I'm not going to complain too much. All right. There is some intriguing receivers. I saw AD Mitchell go off the board at this point. DJ Shark off the board as well too. I don't probably waiting, or like they probably shouldn't be here with the potential. But the issue is if everyone's aggressively drafting through receivers to make sure that they're meeting the starting requirements, when's the scenario where AD Mitchell really ends up being your starter or DJ Chark? Like things have to go catastrophically bad, which is why I think most people are saying wait at receiver, or sorry, like they only want 6 or whatever else. Like there's not there's maybe one player where if things break a certain way becomes an obvious starter, and I think you could throw him in your lineup, whatever. And that would be one I would consider at this point. That's about it though. Yeah, it's bleak. It's bleak. I'm gonna make sure I take my one pet favorite that I have before we go focusing on the defenses too much or figure out what it is. But there is one receiver that's left, and I think, oh yeah, I mean, I'm gonna make the fatal mistake that I was talking before. But yeah, one receiver left that I like a decent enough. Jarrett, be quiet. People drafting might be reading this. Delete your tweet or message. Nobody say anything else about it. No, a lot of eyeballs. Nothing else was mentioned. Yeah, it's just take Xavier Legette. That's how it should work, right? No other guys that we need to be worried about. Yeah, well, actually, Jalen McMillan's a really good pick though. Like that could work out really, really well. Yeah, I'm okay with that. I want to make sure I'm reading things as quickly as we're okay. Yeah. All right, teammate. Don't hurt me, teammate. Jared's trying to ruin my draft strategy here. My league winning round 18 pick. Jared's trying to ruin it here, and teammate has the unfortunate chance to hurt me quite a bit. I don't know. Oh, could be able to kick her off the board instead. Didn't need that. There we go. All right. So as we all know, Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk are the pictures of health. So I think Ricky Pearsall actually is good. I'm not like in the dynasty format. I've had this conversation with a lot of friends. 14th overall, 12th, 13th overall. Like, Ayuk probably leaves the Niners this year. I don't think he signs the extension. I think he leaves the Niners this year. And if he does that, like if Ayuk wasn't there, Pearsall in this offense with Kyle Shanahan probably is like a top 7-8 dynasty pick. But the same concept applies for a redraft, right? Like if Brandon Ayuk or Deebo Samuel had missed extended time, we know Deebo's injury history. Even if Pearsall is not the primary target, just the sheer amount of snaps, the playing style that the Niners like to do, Pearsall is going to be one of those you could put into your lineup. And easily one of my favorite dart throws at the end in this kind of 20-round draft where you can not stash. Like Pearsall probably is one of my first drops if I need to, but more or less make it work with that position. So happy to have him as the final receiver, running back. There is one more token pick that I always make. I'll be shocked if he ends up being selected with most every defense already taken off the board. I'm not at all worried about what ends up falling to me here. So we'll go the last position with my final 3 or 4 picks. Thank you. I mean, we are now at almost 850 people watching. This is fantastic. I was expecting like 100. So appreciate everyone who tuned in live. Didn't mind me rambling for an hour too much. I hope that if you are participating in the NFFC, you got some fun parts of the strategy. We're going to do another one of these drafts. I think it's going to be in 2 weeks. We're aiming for August 15th. We haven't announced yet an auction draft on the NFFC format with my Tuesday co-host on the podcast, Jake Latarski. We love you guys who are watching right now to participate in that. You can take advantage of all our bad takes on Josh Jacobs and the like, and really, really put our feet to the fire and price and force if that is the case. So excited to do one more of these. The NFFC guys have always been awesome to us. I'm on the clock right now. And really, really grateful for Greg and the group to give me another chance at the $250,000 and hopefully to not embarrass the company like I have for the past 3 years. So Ben Sinnott was my last pick. I feel incredibly confident that there is not a tight end past Pat Frymuth, who's tight end 13, that's going to make a difference this year. Last year, Laporta, you had Trey McBride, Luke Musgrave. There was like 3 or 4 or 5 different tight ends that you could get tight end 14 or later that were league winning picks. I don't think that's this year. But if there is going to be one, maybe it's Noah Fant. I guess that'd be 2. I'm already cheating on my answer. But the other person would be Ben Sinnott. I don't think Zach Ertz's carcass lasts more than 3 weeks in Washington. And the prospect profile, Theo Johnson was another one who was taken. If someone speculates in the Giants tight ends, fine. Johnson was like the freak athlete of that group, but Ben Sinnott is equally freakish. and I think is going to fall into a role much more comfortably outside of Terry McLaurin, Jahan Dotson, and I guess Eckler to a certain extent for Jaden Daniels. I mean, we did this with we did this with Andrew Luck, right? They drafted Kobe Fleener in the second round to partner your rookie quarterback with the safety net. That's been the cliche of football for as long as I've been alive, which is 30 plus years now. The rookie tight end or young guy who always wants to rely on the rookie quarterback wants to rely on the young tight end. I think Ben Simmons is a really talented player, and I had of the 18 leagues I did last year, Laporta was my most rostered player. It's going to be Rashad Bateman and Ben Simmons, I think, get to that equation this year. So I'm all on board. His ADP in underdog is like 3 rounds higher best ball wise. You could do that in best ball. I think redraft is a little bit harder. But this right now, which was listed at 240 for NFFC, is crazy. I would take him over Dulcich, Theo Johnson. I would take him over Cole Kmet. I would take him over Luke, maybe not Luke Musgrave per se. And I think Tyler Conklin has a place, but the upside scenario, Benson, it could be a tight end 6 or 7. If things broke a certain way and people believe Jaden Daniels is going to be that quarterback, yeah, I'm all on board. So, I think I know the defenses. Hey, someone did take the Packers defense. There we go. I think I know the defenses pretty well, but I'm going to pull up my phone week 2 NFL schedule because that's the key. I go by 2 weeks if I can for the NFFC. You could stream defenses relatively easily. There's a fab budget, which makes people target those a little bit more. Let's see, week 2. Just want to make sure. I mean, the Commanders play the Giants. Everyone knows Daniel Jones is not it, so maybe there's something to that. Yeah, Steelers play the Broncos. I think that the Steelers in week 2 defense is also pretty nice as well. We're not on the clock just yet, so we could sweat this out a little bit longer. Titans have the Jets. Don't want to mess around with that at all. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I know who I'm taking. Just to be clear, let's get the full schedule. When you click on ESPN, it should never show the preseason games. Like I don't care what team somebody plays in the preseason. That's ridiculous in my mind. So yeah, that's not one of those that I ever really worry about too much. I got to make sure that this defense, yes, they are still there. All right, cool. And we should be set as we round it out. Oh, Jarrett says, yeah, Ben Simmons, steal easy for. I was going to say steal the draft. Like, don't do that. Now you're a better football player than the guys you just said. Yeah, no, absolutely. Isn't it that easy sometimes? Just get the good football players on the field. I think coordinators make really stupid decisions all the time, and I get really angry, especially last year, just bad coaching and how they can impact things. But that's just an easy call. Like Ben Simmons is a better football player than Zach Ertz. So we'll end up saying, all right, I'm on the clock. I'm making the last selection here, and that is going to be the Seahawks defense, which gets the Patriots in week 2. And then I forget even who they have. The Broncos week 1. And if it is Bo Nix, fine. But you're saying, hey, either quality backups like Jacoby Brissett or rookie quarterbacks like Drake May and Bo Nix. We all know the record for rookie quarterbacks making their first start week 1. I'll take the Seahawks defense every time. I get a 2-week option to use them. Yeah, they're missing playmakers or guys that get sacks, all that stuff. I just want the low point total. That's what I'm looking for if I'm going to wait on defense like I did here. And very, very comfortable ending with the Seahawks. So that'll do it for me, everyone. Thank you again. We're pushing close to 900 live viewers. This is awesome. We will have another draft on this airways. Well, I guess we'll have a lot of these online championships for a lot of other folks over the coming weeks. But Jake and I think August 15th, don't quite write it down. We'll put it on our Twitters, my Twitter, JB Fantasy Sports, Jake's at RotoJake, where we want the listeners to participate in that if they, I guess, have the budget to do so. And I'm really looking forward. We'll have some podcasts coming up talking about auction strategy as we get ready for the RotoWire Stake League draft, which is one of the biggest ones here in the office. A lot more content to come. And then I'll be traveling for the final 2 weeks of August, doing various different media hits across the country. So I appreciate everyone that participated and in this draft as well. Shout out to Team 6. I know everyone's really happy how they did. And looking forward to seeing how the results of this draft go. And hopefully everyone of you guys got some sort of fun out of this as well, too, as you're with me for an hour and a half. So I appreciate it, everyone, and have a good night.